my 1969 Martin D-35. I bought this last summer just outside New Orleans in Mandeville, Louisiana from my dear friend Randy Lanier. And man, I love Martin guitars. Pretty much, they are my favorite guitars. I have been captivated by them since I was 14 years old, and my youth pastor let me play his D16. Ever since then, I have been hooked on the idea of owning and being around as many cool old Martins as I can. Now, every time I get a chance to buy one, I try to, and most times I succeed. Some of the times I succeed. This one is really cool, and so let's talk about this one, what I know about it, and then let's get into what's good about this thing and what's bad about this thing and what all it cost and took to get it to this space, and then what's gonna happen with this guitar when I'm all done with it. When I owned a guitar shop in Covington, Louisiana, there was a bluegrass jam at a Feed and Seed just maybe a block from my shop, and so I would go over there, and occasionally I would run into this guy Duncan. So I've seen this guitar before. Now, this guitar belonged to Duncan. When Duncan passed away, his spouse was looking for someone to buy it, someone to love it, someone to care about it. She gave it to Randy for him to sell, and so for me, I will love this thing, I'll take care of it, I'll bring it back to its former glory, but I'm not a keeper of these guitars. I'm not Jeremy the Guitar Collector, I'm Jeremy the Guitar Hunter, and so for me, I wanted to get this thing sorted because I saw that there were some problems with it right away that I knew the right people to get this thing fixed. So what is this thing? This is made in 1969, which is a very precarious time for Martin dreadnoughts in particular. Especially the ones that are made of rosewood. Especially the ones that are made at the very end of the 1960s. This is a full-on Brazilian. Look how inky and beautiful the sides are. So this guitar has Brazilian for the bigger panels, and then a very inky streak there in the middle, and then I think that these are the same board or from the same tree because that grain matches really, really well. Now, very much more like straight grained, what you would expect coming out of the side panels. But the D-35 was a new thing. In 1965, the D-35 came out, and when it did, it was a different take on a dreadnought. It was a little more thoughtful, a little more introspective, and most notably, it was modern. Martin has always kind of had one foot stuck, you know, decades behind them. Always. There's always this sense of like, well, we made X bracing, and so that's why there's always this component of tradition, and part of that is great. I love that the history of guitars is really connected to Martin guitars, and some of the best guitars in the world have been made by Martin. And yet my problem is still that the best guitars I believe are still out there. Like, think about all the guitars that came about after this one. Anyway, again, I digress. The D-35 came around, and the other main difference with it is how it's braced. It has thinner bracing than a traditional 18 or 28. So that means it's a little warmer, not quite as loud, doesn't have as much headroom, but it immediately hit the place in the 1960s that a lot of guitar players were coming from. More thoughtful, a little more articulate. They wanted to, I mean, think about Dylan and Neil Young and Joan Baez and that kind of folk player. That's the reason I got into guitar, which I was born in the 80s. But my mom got me a guitar, and part of her deal was that she would get me a guitar if I would learn how to play Heart of Gold by Neil Young. That's the song, and the Needle and the Damage Done. True story, and weird little caveat in this story. In 7th grade, I played at a talent show, and I played... I played that song, and it wasn't until years later that I realized, like, that song's about somebody, that's about losing a friend to heroin. This guitar immediately spoke to an entire generation of thoughtful, fingerstyle, folky guitar players, and man, it's very cool. So when the opportunity came up for me to buy a 4th model year of this that was still Brazilian, I jumped on it. I asked Randy what he's asking for it. He gave me a number, and I immediately said, yeah, let's do that. I came back, I bought it the next day. Now, what has it needed since then? It's needed a lot of work. So when I got this guitar, the saddle was down to nothing. And I put light strings on it, and immediately it buzzed and wouldn't even play because of how low this saddle was. And so I knew that it needed a lot of TLC. That's where my amazing and incredibly talented friend Nathan Wright came in. We ended up spending most of the fall in Nashville this year, and it was wonderful. If you've not been in Middle Tennessee in October, you're missing out because it's just really beautiful. So during that trip, I went down to see Nathan, and I took this guitar with me to Nathan. The number one thing that we needed to have done was a neck reset. Now, if you don't know, that is where you properly take the entire neck off of the guitar. The way that you do that is you remove the 14th fret right where it meets the body, you drill 2 holes in, and you shoot steam into the neck joint, and it's glue, and so when that glue encounters steam, it will then soften up and loosen up, and then you can also work a putty knife under the fretboard extension. You can take the entire neck off. Now, the other thing that we knew that we needed to do was that we needed to refret this guitar. It needed some TLC. Now, did it need a full refret? Probably not. But we figured, let's just do it right. One of the options I had was to use the kind of gold EVO, the modern frets, like on the Modern Deluxe. There's one back here somewhere. But I chose to not do that because I wanted to keep it pretty original. I didn't want to go resto mod on this. I wanted to go restoration. So we did things. There's only one thing that we did that is actually genuinely a change to how this guitar would have existed in 1969 when it was sold. There's a huge misconception that Martins pre-1985 did not have truss rods. That is a misconception. They had truss rods. They did not have adjustable truss rods. And so this guitar had a steel tube down the neck that was there for reinforcement. Now, they're not always dead reliable. Sometimes they can move one way or the other, and it's not always helpful. So one of the things that you can do is just add some rigidity to that. So what Nathan and I did, and what we chose to do, he put a carbon fiber rod inside that steel tube with epoxy.
So I've got a late 60s Martin D-35 here in for a neck reset and refret. And so it picked up quite a bit of relief under tension, and then when I took the tension off, it lost most of the relief. So it's got a lot of flex in that neck. And these steel tubes are kind of known for that through the 70s and 80s until they started putting truss rods in. So what I'm doing to stiffen up the neck and hopefully fight that relief that it gets under tension is a carbon fiber rod that I fit to the tube, and then I put a little epoxy in there and make sure the whole rod is coated, and then work it in and let it sit. So this should really stiffen up the neck and give it a much longer lifetime.
what is going to come of this guitar? This D-35 is an absolute time capsule of South Louisiana, of bluegrass, of Martin guitars, of a modern guitar that is now vintage. And it's a guitar that I don't necessarily want to keep. Part of that is because I have a bunch of money parked in this. I have other ambitions and plans for the money that's in this guitar. Now, I do love finding guitars, fixing them up, restoring them, and getting them into the hands of players that will keep them forever. So I have somebody lined up on this. If you are interested, by the time this video goes up, you have a pretty good chance if you're interested in this guitar. Now, I will say I'm going to ask $7,000 for this guitar. I believe that that's, number one, prices in YouTube videos always age poorly. So 10 years from now, people are going to be like, that's a steal. I would have bought 2 of those. At this time, it's the right price. It's a little higher than market, but for a one-owner, clean, totally sorted, excellent playing Martin D-35 that's Brazilian, I mean, good luck finding another one. So anyway, there's always this feeling of reverence. Like, it feels like a very important and special thing for me to get sorted and taken care of. And but if you know me and you know this channel, big Brazilian bluegrassy guitars, that's not my vibe. I'm small 12 fret fingerstyle guitars. That's where my heart lives. So that's where I'm headed. But thanks for watching this video. This is a 1969 Martin D-35, and this is a roundabout, full-on story of what this guitar is, where it came from, what we had to do to it, where it's going. Make sure you check out Nathan Wright down in the description down below. He is unbelievably talented, and I own one of his guitars. It has quickly become a guitar that is very near and dear to my heart. He is incredibly talented. Between like him and Ben Padgett and a handful of others, we are in the absolute best moment ever for acoustic guitars. And I am incredibly thankful that I get to do this for my job. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you're subscribed. Become a patron if you want to support the channel, if you want closer and more access to me. Thanks for watching. I'm Jeremy. I'm Guitar Hunter. See you later. That was the frets. That wasn't me. That wasn't the guitar. That was me.